Okay, it's going. Gonna look at it's really neat the way these things just disappear from a half hour ago. You have to excuse me, I have to get out for a minute and cue up the video, which was fine an hour ago. Okay, this should do it.
Perfect.
Did everybody hear this or anybody?
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Hi, Paul here from Photo Genius. In this video, I want to show you how to take really cool nighttime photos. This video is aimed at the beginner, so we're going to be talking you through the gear, talking you through what camera modes to use, the settings, everything you need to get you started. It's going to be a lot of fun. And this evening we're at a place called Kangaroo Point, which is on the Brisbane River, just around sunset. Great spot, gives us a great vantage point of the city. We're going to try and visit 2 locations in this video. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stick around. Now, my intentions for this video were to do something a bit different. Instead of shooting in the studio, I wanted to take you guys on location, do some cool nighttime photography and share with you how I did it and what settings I used and so on. But it was actually a lot trickier than I thought. Not from a photography point of view. Taking photos at nighttime is relatively easy, and I'm going to show you how to do it shortly. But taking video in low light is actually really, really tricky. And the light was terrible. No matter where I went, the light was awful. And really, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to deliver a video that was really the quality that you guys would expect of this channel. So hence, 2 days later, I'm now here in the studio to talk you through all the key essentials. I was shooting with the Nikon D3500. I was also shooting with the Nikon Z6. And look, I've got an image behind me here. This image turned out really great. I think this was taken on the evening, and this was taken not with the Z6, this was taken with the Nikon D3500, which goes to show that you can take cool nighttime photos even with an entry-level camera. And again, this is something that I often say on this channel. It's not about the gear so much, it's about what you do with it and how you use it. So if you're new to the channel and you want to know how to take great photos, please consider subscribing. Right, let's start by talking about the gear. Now, if you want to do good nighttime photos, you're going to need to be able to get out of auto and use your camera manually. So a DSLR, mirrorless or bridge camera should allow you to do this. Once you've got the camera sorted, you're then going to need something to keep the camera steady whilst you're taking your shot. And this is where a tripod comes in. A tripod is an essential bit of kit if you're going to do low light and nighttime photography. Now, I'm going to recommend 3 tripods to you, and details and links to these will be found in the description below the video, so check these out. First one is one of my all-time favorites, which is the Manfrotto Pixie Evo, a very small, lightweight, compact tripod that you can use just about anywhere. It is very small, but it's pretty cheap and it's very sturdy and well made. The next one, you may have seen these before, Joby GorillaPod. This is quite a big one. You can get smaller ones. These are the ones that have the flexible legs. This is good if you're working on uneven surfaces, but you can also wrap the legs around maybe a fence post, or some people hang or suspend cameras from trees. They're pretty cool. So that's the Joby GorillaPod. And my next recommendation, which is a really good, almost full-size tripod, but is great for traveling, is the Manfrotto B3 travel tripod. Here it is. It's packed down, so it's pretty small. I did a video on this. I'll put a description up here so you can check this out. So there's 3 tripod recommendations. And again, for more details on those, just look below the video. You'll find links and information relating to those. The next thing you're going to need is a remote. This is a Canon remote that will work on most Canon DSLRs. This is a Nikon remote. Some of you may be lucky enough to have a camera that allows you to connect to your smartphone, and therefore you can use that as a remote. Some of you may not have a remote, and if this is you, I've got a really cool trick that I actually used on the night myself, and this is a way of getting around not having a remote, and I'll come back to that later on in the video. Right, now let's talk camera modes and settings. Now, if you've ever tried taking photos in low light or at night time with a camera set in the auto mode, then there's every chance that your photos have turned out a bit disappointing. And this usually comes down to 2 reasons, 2 things that in auto you have no control over. Number 1, the flash pops up. Usually when you're using your camera in auto in low light, the flash pops up. I get it. I understand why the camera does this. It's trying to throw some extra light on the subject, which kind of makes sense. But look at the image behind me. That little pop-up flash is going to do nothing to illuminate that scene, and therefore it's a complete waste of time. The second thing the camera will do is almost certainly increase the ISO. Now again, I understand why. Increasing the ISO is going to make your image brighter, but increasing the ISO also means the image quality deteriorates. It will look grainy. This is called digital noise, and it's something where possible we want to try and avoid. A more effective way of taking a photo in low light is to get out of auto, get into the manual mode, and start taking control of the camera's shutter. Now the shutter sits inside the camera. It's a bit like a door. When you press the shutter button, it opens, allowing light to enter the camera, and then it closes, and that's it. You then get to see your photo. Now once the shutter opens, your camera is recording light, and of course the longer it's open, the more light the camera can record and the brighter the image will be. So the most effective way of taking photos in low light is to slow the shutter down. This is also often referred to as a long exposure. So how do you control the shutter? Well, there's a number of camera modes that will allow you to do this, but in this video we're going to look at one in particular. This is called shutter priority. This is a really good mode if you're a beginner, but interestingly is also the mode that is often used by professional sports photographers. The great thing about this mode is you can control the shutter speed and the camera looks after the aperture. It's a great mode. So to select this on your camera, look to the camera dial for an S. So on most cameras, you rotate the dial to get to the S, which is for shutter priority. If you've got a Canon camera, you'll notice there's no S. Look out for TV. This is time value. Now, whilst it's a different name, it's still shutter priority. So once you're in the shutter priority mode, all you've got to do to change the shutter speed is turn the dial on the camera. On the Canon cameras, it's usually found on the top. On this Nikon, it's at the back here. Now, if I wake up the camera and I start dialing to the right, I see the shutter speed changing or increasing. Now I'm going to take it as far as it goes. On this particular model, the D3500, the fastest shutter speed is 1/4000th of a second. I'll put that here. Now, if you've got a camera that's maybe higher up in the range or more expensive, then you may be lucky enough to have a top shutter speed of 1/8000th of a second. I'll pop that here. Now, these shutter speeds are really fast. So if you're shooting in really good light during the daytime, these shutter speeds can be ideal. The shutter will open and close really, really quickly. But taking photos at nighttime, of course, because there's less light, we want to slow the shutter down. We want the shutter to be open longer so we get more opportunity to record the light. So this is done by dialing to the left. Now, as I dial to the left, the shutter speed is slowing down, and there's a load of shutter speeds to choose from. Thousandths, hundreds, tenths of a second. Now I'm going to stop at 10. So this is 1/10. This is 1/10th of a second, because I want to take a picture and I want you to hear this. Now what you hear there is 2 clicks. The first click is the shutter opening. The second click is the shutter closing. So we are already getting down to a slower shutter speed. Now if I keep dialing down, eventually I will see that the number now is shown as a number with what looks like a quotation mark behind it. Here I have a shutter speed of 1 second. Again, I'll take another picture. Now that was a second gap between the shutter opening and closing. And if I keep dialing to the left, we start to get into the really slow shutter speeds. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15, all the way down to 30 seconds. These are the sorts of shutter speeds that will allow you to take amazing photos at nighttime. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the great thing about using shutter priority is that we don't have to worry too much about the aperture because the camera's adjusting the aperture depending on what shutter speed we select. So should we even care about aperture when using this mode? Yes, we should. And that's because sometimes the camera will not be able to choose an aperture that will give us a balanced exposure. And you'll easily spot this because the F number on the screen on the back of your camera will begin to flash. And if this happens, all you need to do is make a change to your shutter speed. This may mean increasing or decreasing the shutter speed until the point that the F number stops flashing. Now I want to quickly talk about ISO. ISO is a function of your camera that will affect your exposure. Increase your ISO for a brighter image, decrease it for a darker image. Now one thing to avoid here is automatic ISO because your camera takes control and you don't know what it's doing. If your camera chooses a higher ISO, whilst it might make your image brighter, your picture will suffer from digital noise. It will start to look grainy. I mentioned it earlier in the video. So default ISO for me is 200, but when taking photos at nighttime, I drop the ISO even lower. On a Canon camera, you'll usually find an ISO button on the back or the top of the camera. Press it, dial in the lowest ISO possible when you're doing nighttime photography. Now, if you've got a Nikon camera and you haven't got an ISO button like the one on the top of the Z6, look for a button that is marked with an I. The I button allows you then to navigate to the ISO and you can change it. Get off auto, drop it to the lowest. Again, with this camera, it's 100. ISO, keep it low. Now I want to go back to remotes. I did mention them earlier in the video. If you're doing a 5, 10, 20 second exposure, you do not want your camera to move at all. Using a remote means that you can activate the camera's shutter without actually touching the camera. But I do appreciate that some of you may not have a remote, so I promised you a little trick. You can set up a self timer in your camera. That means after you press the shutter button, the camera will count down and then take the photo. This is a great way of eliminating camera shake for free. Now on most cameras you'll find a button which has what looks like a little clock symbol next to it. If you press this button and select the timer, you will now see a delay. If I press the shutter button, that's the timer, that's the shutter opening and closing. Self timer is a really cool tip and it's free. Now in a moment we're going to take a look at some of the images that I captured a couple of nights ago with these very cameras, but before we do, let's run through a checklist that can help you take amazing photos at night. The first one being fairly obvious: use a solid tripod so your camera can't move. Number 2, select shutter priority mode because you want to be able to control the shutter, but you don't want to have to worry about the aperture too much. Number 3, ISO, keep it low, dial in 100 ISO. Number 4, choose a shutter speed. Maybe start with 5 or 10 seconds and then play around and experiment and see how different shutter speeds maybe affect the look of your image. Number 5, if you haven't got a remote, find your camera's self timer. It's a freebie, it's already built in, and it's another way of avoiding shake. Okay, let's take a look at those images. This first image is taken with the Nikon D3500, and I keep raving about this camera because for an entry-level camera you can take amazing photos like this. 10-second exposure, ISO low, camera chose f8 for the aperture. This second image is taken with the Z6 Nikon mirrorless camera. 30-second exposure gives a nice blur and softness to the Brisbane River. For my second location, I went to the Story Bridge, which is often illuminated in different colours. On this evening, it was a beautiful purple colour. This is taken with the D3500 once again, 20-second exposure. And when you see this image on a big screen, it's amazing how the camera's picked up the stars in the sky, which is quite unusual when you're in the middle of the city. A second image of the Story Bridge, this time taken with the Z6. I think definitely a better picture, this one, a bit sharper, and definitely the Z6 had a better job at rendering the colours. This image was taken the following evening with the Z6 down at Manly Harbour, which is close to the Photogenius office. Exposure time here is just 0.8 seconds, shot with a really wide aperture f2.8 and a higher ISO to get the stars in the sky. And finally, another visit to the Story Bridge, this time for a pano shot with the Z6. This is 6 images stitched together. Exposure time 13 seconds, f6.3, ISO 100. Now, if you do follow my tips and you get some amazing nighttime photos, I would really like to see them. So if you're posting your images to Instagram, make sure you include the hashtag PhotoGeniusBrisbane. That way I can search and find your images. Now, if you've enjoyed the video and you've enjoyed the tips, please give us a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel, and don't forget you can leave your questions, comments and suggestions below, where you will also find details about the tripods I mentioned earlier in the video. I hope to see you again sometime soon. See ya. Goodbye.
Again, on YouTube, the site is Photogenius. There's a whole lot of photos, and I thought he was pretty clear on what he was saying. A couple things was, he was saying ISO 100. That's for night photo. I think that's very difficult. And I think, one of his photos was with ISO 3200, but I thought that was as sharp as you would want to be, could be. On the tripods, we're going to go back and just look at a couple nighttime pictures that we have taken as members of the club and some I found on the internet. And then we'll get talking about a couple specific things, and we'll open it up for discussion. Here's a couple of photos that Mario took at night, and they clearly convey the feeling of nighttime. Teddy's restaurant in Cranberry. A couple more from Mario. These are a couple of mine. On the left, my grandchildren, that really just at the end of dusk, the really beginning of night. Get the color, it's interesting. The one on the right is was taken at Liberty State Park. Some of us from the photo club went up there. It must have been what, 5-7 years ago or something. We went up I think it was probably September, October that time. So the sunset wasn't terribly late. We took a sandwich lunch up and we ate lunch there, and waited for it to get dark. So this one, the moon is up here. You get a little bit of foreground of the this one is at the same place, Liberty State Park. This was a couple that were there. You get I think you get the sense of nighttime there also, and it's dark. I'm not sure if I had a flash on that or not. I would tend to think I didn't use the flash. Again, and then the one on the right is another view of Manhattan across the river. These are pictures you see oftentimes, night pictures. On the left, the star trails. Now, this was obviously set up, I don't know how many minutes or hours of exposure. This would take a lot of trial and error to take. The one on the right is the big blood moon with an interesting fence in the foreground. Good luck finding an animal at night to take a picture of, but this obviously was, I think obviously, I got this on the internet. It sure looks like it was probably flash on it. It might have been a camera even set up with a trip flash. And the one on the right is again another long exposure that, you know, any of us could take this, find some highway that you just set up and you take, I don't know, I have no idea what the setting is, but you know, it's at least 10 or 15 seconds, I'm sure, to get that. You get a very interesting view. And also you notice that by using the tripod, the background is steady and in focus. I'm going to now unmute everybody. I think I'm going to. I think you should all be unmuted now. There's a couple of things I wanted to discuss that came up. He talked about very low ISO, which I think is, you know, that's fine. Can I put everybody in video? Let me see.
Mark can maybe.
Mark, can I get the real me? No? Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Anyway, you're gonna have to take my word for it. I could see some of you and not some of you. The ISO, I mean, it's always been common knowledge that folklore that the lower the ISO, the clearer the picture. Although, as I think I mentioned once before, is I was looking at a photography magazine that had I think it was a wildlife. Something there. A wildlife photography contest, and a lot of those pictures were taken at somewhere around between ISO like 2400 and 4000, and they were sharp as anything. So the newer cameras give you a much bigger range on ISO. The tripods.
Hey, Claude,
Yeah,
there's a message coming up that you have to unmute everybody.
yeah, I did that. I unmuted everybody. I wanted to
No.
video everybody.
Well, after you did that, a message came up on my screen to click to unmute. So maybe they're waiting for that.
Okay, everybody could themselves click to unmute. The bottom left of your
Yeah, but
screen, there's the microphone.
No good?
Oh, got just about half. 7 in, 7 out.
You have a master unmute, Claude, or do you have to?
I have an master on mute. Dan, can you talk?
my video is shut off.
All right, Claude, Mark says try doing each one individually.
Yeah, I was just doing that. Okay.
Mario should be okay now. No?
Could you talk, Mario?
Talk a little louder.
No. I unmute all, but it still shows a mute for a number of different people. And
Would you know how to get the real me on here?
get what?
My photo is up there of me, but not me.
Okay.
I don't think that's your problem.
No, it's not.
I think it's my problem, but I don't know why it switched off.
Yeah.
Claude, you want to try throwing it back to Mark, see if he can do it?
Yeah, do that. Where are you, Mark? Stonebridge photo.
Maybe I should leave and come back in.
Okay, I just made Mark the host.
Okay. Let me go into everybody and unmute them now. Can you hear me now?
Hear you.
All right. We'll go into each person.
Okay.
Diana, if you go to the lower left corner, do you see start or stop video?
Yes, start video. Okay, maybe that's it.
Okay, my video is not working. Somebody has to do it.
You cannot start your video
All right.
because the host
right.
has stopped it.
Yeah.
Mark, you have to do it.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
The other Harvey got his camera working.
Circumstances beyond our control, this program will be interrupted.
Okay, there's Dan back.
The host,
Well,
right.
I'm back.
Yeah.
All right. Dan has to start his own.
I'm back. I'm back. Thank you. Very too
I can
bad.
ask to start video, but you guys have to start it yourself.
You're right. Yeah.
Dan was just on. He's off.
Yeah, Ed is off. I see Ed is off.
Ed, you got to start your video.
Hal is off.
Well, when
You're
I
welcome.
try to start it, it says unable to start video because the host has stopped it.
Who's that?
Ed,
And
Ed, hold on, Ed. I'm going to go back to you.
looks like we lost Dan.
He's muted.
He has to unmute himself. Let me get back. Let me find Ed.
He's back.
Okay, Ed.
Guys, Kinky Boots is on channel 13. In case you want to know.
okay.
Who's on channel 13?
Kinky Boots. The show.
Oh,
Kinky-
were you with me when we saw it?
No.
Yeah.
Ed, you look so comfortable.
Why not?
Too comfortable.
Why shouldn't he be?
Yep.
Sure.
Looks like you should have a scotch in your hand.
He's got
There you
one.
go. There you go.
Well, sorry to disappoint you. It's Diet Coke.
No. No. Well.
As long as you're comfortable.
Hey, everybody's here. Good.
Whatever happened to Bobby?
I tried calling her.
I thought I saw her on.
No,
Who?
I don't think so.
no, I didn't have her on.
Really?
She may have forgotten.
Okay.
Okay, where were we?
Okay, a couple of things he talked about in the video. One of them was a tripod. This is that Joby tripod that the legs get spread all over. And it's a neat thing. At this size, this is the middle size of those. They have ones with longer legs and ones with a little bit shorter legs. This size, I think, is about $30, $40 on Amazon. It's a little neat thing to have. I wouldn't use it as a real substitute for a substantial tripod.
Claude,
Yeah.
Lord,
Just a question on that thing. How sturdy is that? He had it wrapped around a tree at one point. Can that really hold up a heavy camera?
I think
I
it probably
used
would. That was the one with the longer legs. This one,
If you wrap it around a pole, could it really hold up a camera?
no.
Yes, it can.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
think
Mario.
so.
I used it in Africa and it never worked right.
No, I agree. It didn't hold up my cameras.
Okay. I have used this size one and it worked. I mean, it's not a full-size tripod by any means, but it does give you a little bit of flexibility.
But can you tie up your husband with that?
Sure.
I
Ah,
mean, the other thing is you get a full-size tripod.
I'm going to tell your husband.
He already
RVP,
knows.
you said that you have one and it worked?
Yeah. In fact, I have one, I have two. If anybody wants to try it out, you're welcome to do that. I'll figure out, let me know. We'll figure out a way for you to get it and try it out. But it's worked for me.
Okay.
I don't know.
Heavy camera,
I'm sorry?
with a heavy camera?
Yeah, it was my D700. The thing is, it comes in different sizes also.
Yeah.
I have the large. I think
Yeah.
yours was the large too, Claude.
No, I think this is the middle size.
Okay.
Each leg, it looks like about 10 inches maybe.
Mine might be the same size, actually. There's
Okay.
one even smaller than that.
Yeah, there is a smaller one and there's a bigger one, yeah.
I have a tripod that folds up really small and it works really well. I don't know the name of it though. And it
Yeah.
wasn't very much money.
I have a lightweight tripod that is a travel tripod. I've taken it on many trips and I've actually used it once or twice. Good intentions are really important. So anyway, tripod, if you're going to take anything at night, you're going to need a tripod for it. And the other thing is the remote shutter release. This is a device on the top here. And there's a second piece that's a remote shutter release. So literally, once you turn it on and get set up and everything, you can push the button here and you can take, I think you can do maybe at least 50 feet away, maybe more than that. These things, you can get one, and they're fairly camera specific. So if you buy one, make sure it fits your camera.
I bought one a while ago. It was a cheapie for Nikon. And you know what? When I bought the new Nikon, it worked on that also.
Okay, good. Yeah. And
You can also use a cable release.
yes, yeah,
Which works as long as you don't want to be in the picture yourself. That works fine.
right, yeah. I mean, the one time
What's the point of that though, of having that?
So you don't shake the camera when you're clicking,
yeah,
But I thought the tripod doesn't shake the camera.
but you got to click the button on the camera. You click the button on the camera, you shake the camera.
Oh, even though it's on a tripod.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
I've never used a tripod.
The main point of this lesson is for night photography,
Right.
you want long exposures usually.
yeah.
So you can't hold it that steady for a 10-second exposure
No.
unless you're a Hercules or something. And that's why you need a tripod,
Yeah.
you know?
And the other thing about these electronic remotes are, you can be, I remember I did someplace or another, I did group pictures with me in it. And so I was standing 30 feet from the camera or something, just could push this button and get the pictures of the group. And on a night photo shoot, you want to set your camera up where you think there might be deer walking through or something like that. And do it from a ways away. But anyway, somewhere's $30 to $50 on Amazon for that. Another toy. But some sort of, and the cable releases probably run around $10, $12 on Amazon. And that's plenty.
Can can cable releases work on the newer cameras? I didn't think there was any connection anymore.
I don't think there is.
Well, I don't have a cable release, so I don't know. Yeah.
No.
It used to be on the old film cameras that you could screw the
You
cable.
screwed it in.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but now they don't have that anymore.
Oh, no, there's connections for it. I have it on my Canon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see it on either of my Nikons.
The only suggestion I would make to people, if you're going to use a cable release, is tie it to your camera cord or something. 'Cause I can't tell you how many of those I've lost.
As long as there's a lull, when Claude was showing those pictures, I remember that little venture we took to Liberty Island.
Yeah.
It was probably more like 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
At any rate, there
2011.
was 4 or 5 of us there,
You're right.
and we didn't know anything about nighttime photography.
Yeah.
So the nice part was we were trying everything.
Yeah.
We were changing ISO, we were changing exposure, we were changing the white balance, just doing everything and trying it. And the 4 or 5 of us there were saying, well, how'd that work out for you? And let's try this. And that's probably your best way of learning. Just experiment. You're not going to go out there, shoot one picture and say, wow, that's it. That's the keeper.
Yeah.
Unless you get very, very lucky. So you try all different alternatives, which is what we would probably do if we go on a little outing.
I think there were a couple of takeaways. One from that day, and I think that was 2011. It was 9 years ago.
Oh, 9 years. Okay.
Well, one was, I thought it was interesting that he said low ISO, because I'm pretty sure all of us probably were jacking up our ISOs to very high levels.
Yeah.
Right? Just the opposite of what he said. And even 9 years later, when he said that, I was like, he's probably right. Because you're on a tripod and you're using the shutter speed to give you your light, not even your aperture. And so he's probably right. You're going to get better quality, because you ever work on a nighttime photo or any photo that has black areas in it or dark areas, when you work on that and you edit it, you're creating tons of noise in those dark areas. So by going to the lower ISO setting, you're helping to reduce that noise.
I'm just surprised he didn't say full manual. He said manual, then he said time.
I think manual is fine. As long as he was making the point to jack up your shutter speed as high as possible.
Right.
The manual is fine. I think he was just with shutter priority. He was just indicating that, hey, you can set the shutter whatever you want, but you can still do that in manual too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another thing that I think it was John Sanstead that brought out, or some judge at that time. We were trying to do real long shutter speeds. We were taking all those shots of the New York skyline at night.
Yeah.
You didn't really notice it until you started working on them, or a judge started picking away at them. With the window lights, when by going too far or too long with the shutter speed, those window lights were all too bright. They were burned out.
Yeah.
And when you took a good look, you had like flare all around them. And that was the second thing I remember from that night. But that ISO and trying to get the shutter, the timing, you don't have to go too far to get the exposure of those window lights or whatever lights are available.
Let me just say something. I don't do much night photography, but for daytime, usually you have the ISO at 100 or 200. So how is it that you make it at 100 for night shots? I don't understand that.
Doesn't matter what your ISO is.
Oh.
Rich has pointed out in workshops, three things you care about: the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter priority. All those three in conjunction are going to give you your exposure, hopefully your proper exposure. So by reducing your ISO to 100, you have to make sure you can get more light in, because your sensor is not going to be as sensitive. So by jacking up by opening up your aperture, or by reducing your shutter speed to as low as possible, you're getting more light in.
Okay.
The point he was trying to make is, by playing with that one leg ISO, you're improving the quality of the photo. And I think it was a good point that he made.
If you're taking a shutter speed of 2 seconds, whether you have 2 seconds or 4 seconds isn't a big deal. So you can lower the ISO. If you're, and the other thing is on the aperture, if you're taking like the scene, the pictures of the New York skyline across the river from Liberty Park, focus is not a big deal. So you could have a wide open aperture and also increase the light in that manner. A lot of it is, getting out there and playing with it and trying it, doing it.
Sure, just another point on that is if you want the rocks or the bushes that are in the foreground sharp as well as the buildings, you're going to need a smaller aperture to get more depth of field.
Yeah.
And I remember another thing that we played around with was using a flash to get those rocks illuminated.
Yeah.
And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
But you can use it.
And I did have one picture there where it had the rocks and the grass there, and I'm sure I put a flash on that, just so you could see it. Otherwise, everything is real dark. You can also do that with a
Use some
supplemental light.
painting, or use some light painting with a flashlight.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Light painting.
What?
Yeah.
Light painting.
What's that?
Light painting.
Yeah. At night when it's really dark and there's not enough light, even for your slow shutter speed, you might want to play with a flashlight or anything else and light up your subject. You can, I would recommend, go on YouTube for light painting, and you'll see some fun things you can do with that.
Well, we had a good workshop on light painting. Rob leading us, must have been 3 or 4 years ago.
Just did a workshop on it, and it's on the web. If you go to the workshops page on the website, you're going to see a bunch of slides that Rob provided, maybe even some videos.
I think I didn't make that.
That Rob provided. If you go there, they're still there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, gang, anything else?
One of the keys is you got to get out and do it. It's
Excuse.
Yeah.
On the 14th, what are we gonna take pictures of? There's nothing out there.
You mean there's Dave Farm?
There's nothing there.
Well,
whose forehead is that?
Yeah.
Oh, take
It's
pictures
Walter.
of the cows.
Forehead.
Take pictures of the cows that are there.
What's there?
Cows.
There aren't been any cows there.
How about some cow
Go in
tipping?
the dark and move.
Can't we find like over the highway?
There are deer.
Go over the highway, but we could get hit by a car.
Yeah.
The highway-
No place where it's safe to.
I don't know.
Claude, perhaps something like Thompson Park, because there might be some illumination near the water.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know what's really nice? Cranberry.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a nice restaurant there that you can take a picture of. Huh?
In Cranberry, yes, there's some nice spots.
And semi-decent food.
It's too bad we can't go back to Liberty State Park.
I don't know if that's open anymore where we were.
It's not open yet.
So things are opening now. Didn't you hear Murphy today?
Yeah, but how much are you going to pull? At what point? Again, we are, quote, over 65.
Speak for yourself.
You know what? You're right. It's an individual decision.
Diana, you don't look age over 15.
Oh, I love you.
I take Philip.
Do you want us all to mute while you two carry on? But another place might be Heightstown, Main Street. There's some restaurants there.
Yeah,
There's
that's
also
nice.
water. And
That's right. There's water there too. Maybe
which gives you the availability if you want to try to get skies with stars. There's a little bit of a waterfall there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
So that might be a nice place, because the other thing I always remembered, Rich, about the Liberty State Park trip, aside from the great sandwiches, was our worry about all the gangs that were roaming around and were going, I'm going to lose this $1,000 camera any minute now.
Yeah.
Also,
Hightstown may not be a bad idea.
but that Liberty State Park, remember, had the abandoned train station and
Yes.
docks and stuff. It was a lot of neat stuff
Gangs
there. Yeah.
Then I lived across the way. What gangs were there?
I think a
That was
lot of
only in Mario's imagination.
No, it was perfectly beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow. Okay.
So for someone who doesn't have a tripod,
You
what
gotta
would you
buy-
recommend?
Buying one.
Buying
No, I
one.
know, but which one?
Make sure you go through Amazon,
Yeah.
Through the link we have on the
the
website.
link on the website.
You know, as this meeting's been going on, I've been looking out my window, and it's now dusk, and 25 people in
Who
at
is
different
talking?
paces have walked past the window. We got our own community of walkers, and we
Yes.
just hit an intersection, and like it or not, they're on film.
We gotta get
Right here.
Walter, we have to get Walter a telephone book or something.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you were talking.
I've been looking out my window too, and all I see is the side of Fred Block's house.
Were your shingles melted? His was.
Yeah.
Oy.
Yeah.
Shingles melted?
Yeah. The
Siding.
guy in back of him had a big window, and his house was on the wrong angle. It's another
Yeah.
Lennar special.
Who is
Melted his
talking?
shingles in the back.
They blamed it on reflection off the
Yeah.
second
Yes.
floor windows of your neighbor.
Right.
Actually, it's crappy shingles.
You
Could
mean
be.
siding.
Mhm.
So,
All right, Claude, you want to go one
That's
last
all I
round?
had, folks.
Okay, that was good, Claude. Thank you.
Very
And,
good.
and do remember, besides the light painting, if you go out at night to take pictures, have a flashlight with you so you can see what the heck you're doing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
and
somebody's
where, if you're going out at night here, wear a bright vest.
You
Got some
aware of-
muddy drivers are here.
Oh, yeah,
Claude brought up a good point. Flashlight, bug spray.
yeah.
Another good thing. No, it's not a joke.
No.
Bug spray, and if it gets cool, you might want to consider like a lightweight jacket or long
Do
sleeve.
we have a campfire and marshmallows?
Say campfire and marshmallow too.
And s'mores, s'mores.
But
Yeah.
just to take,
Walter,
just to
what are
take
you
away,
doing down there?
just a takeaway that I want to reiterate, experiment a lot. There aren't hard and fast rules. The situations, the pictures, the amount of light, because you'll be changing light, especially if you go at sunset,
Mhm.
it'll be changing every few minutes. So
Yes,
do a
every-
lot of
every 10
experimenting. And it's nice if you go out with somebody else or a few other people
Yeah.
and play off each other.
Mhm.
Best way to learn.
You know, one thing that he didn't address is focus. You know, at night your autofocus doesn't work.
Yeah,
And
you
so-
best off manual focus, yeah,
Yeah, and so you need a manual, but it's not easy to focus in the dark.
no.
But the one thing is most of the pictures you're thinking of taking are going to be at a distance, so you're probably going to be going toward infinity.
Well, unless
Yeah.
you want to get some foreground objects in there, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If we go someplace on the 14th, Mark, will you I assume you'll send an email and tell us where and,
Oh, well, as soon as Rich or Dan tell me, I will be happy to.
You know,
I guess you can't, I guess we can't carpool, right? So really
Well,
can't go that.
Everything
well,
is,
first off, July 14th is 5 weeks away,
yeah.
so or, yeah,
Yeah.
5 weeks away. So
Maybe it'll be better.
I don't know what, but we're surely not gonna make a decision on that until the
Yeah,
end of June.
got a while.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We do.
You're right, we do. It's 5 weeks away.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Claude.
Okay,
Okay.
just one,
Thanks, Claude.
one
See you
last
soon. Yeah.
One last point on this is, we go to LBI, our whole family, for a week, the end of June every year. And traditionally, I'd gotten up at 5 o'clock one morning and go down to the beach and take sunrise pictures. And I met a guy there, he was saying that June is absolutely the worst time to take either sunrise or sunset pictures. You have to get up to take a sunrise at the end of June. You have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you do it in December, you can be out there at 7:30 and go back and have a cup of coffee after you're finished. For sunset, again, the end of June, you're out there at 8:30, between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. It's the end of the day. You do it in December. You go out for sunset at 4:30. And it's over, you need to go back and have your cocktail
And
hour.
they find your frozen body on the
Yeah,
beach.
and
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, well, he did mention that was a downside of the going down to the beach in the middle of December.
Your fingers are frozen off trying to set the camera.
Yep.
You know, there's also
Did that.
that at sunset, there's a 5-minute window where if you take pictures, the sky is absolutely beautiful on blue.
Yeah,
But it's only like 5 or 10 minutes you have to capture it.
right.
That's true.
That's
Well, you
another
have to go
thing
out.
that we did 9 years ago. We stayed there, I think, till about 10, 11 at night.
Oh, yeah, it was
And
definitely
we were
full
there
dark,
till
yeah.
midnight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And people pointed out to us, I think Bobby often talks about, what does she call it, the blue hour?
The blue hour, yeah.
Right after dusk for about an hour is the ideal time to take night photos. Well, we were all new at this, and so first of all, we got there at 5 o'clock when sunset was, going to be hours away, and we're eating our sandwiches and eating the chips and stuff, and then we stayed for about 3-4 hours after
Yeah.
dark when it was really probably pretty useless to take photos at that time.
Yes.
I think we took about 1,000 photos each.
Yep.
Yeah.
It-
And 990 of them look the same.
Yeah.
Black.
They should have been thrown away, yes. There's also going to be, I think there's going to be an eclipse of the moon, July 4th into July 5th. So that's another thing you can set your tripod up and
Yeah.
pictures of that.
An eclipse, you said?
Yeah. You have to Google it yourself. I think it said in New York area would be able to see it. But,
Excellent.
and you could do that from your own front yard or backyard, depending on whichever you want.
Okay. Anything else,
Go
Ken?
back to your tripod question. The one I have like
Thank
this, it'll take 6.61 pounds maximum load.
Okay.
Is that the
So-
gorilla one, Harvey?
What?
Is that the gorilla one, Harvey?
This is the focus one.
Yeah.
It's called
Oh,
Focus?
Yeah.
Do the
So it won't
legs
take- it won't
extend
take a
on
long
that?
lens.
You know, I don't know why he's showing short little tripods for doing night photography. I mean, I
Yeah.
recommend going with a real tripod.
But you can attach this to you can wrap this around your tree.
A real.
You want to climb a tree. That's
Do those legs extend, Harv?
Yeah, like this.
That's it, though.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're not telescopic.
They're not
Tabletop.
But you can wrap them.
Okay.
Oh, so that is a gorilla one.
Well, no, it's probably a copy of the gorilla one.
Oh,
Mhm.
I got it for free. What do you expect?
But,
Price
but
is
in any
right.
event, for real night photography, you're much better off with a full-size heavy tripod.
Guys, I have one like this that the legs go, they move up and down. It folds up to like this big.
Yeah.
It's called a Manfrotto. M-A-N-F-R-O-T-T-O.
Frodo.
Mhm.
Manfrotto.
Manfrotto. And it works really well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Frodo's a good one.
Thanks,
I don't know how
Sue.
much it was, but I got it from Amazon.
Thank you.
You can, Diana, you can get good aluminum tripods for anywhere from $60, $100. If you go into the carbon fiber, then you're talking a few hundred.
So really,
Aluminum works just fine.
Mhm.
it's equivalent to 2 or 3 meals that you couldn't have for the last 13 weeks. So, yeah.
We
So
saved
all that found money.
for not eating out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
My food bills are a little higher than usual.
right.
And when you guys go to a restaurant and you see a hamburger, $18.95.
Wow.
Here?
Hey, Walter, I'm just curious. How come you're so short? I remember you being.
Walter, you gotta get a different chair or something.
Get a higher chair, Walter.
What is going on there?
Does anybody have an old phone book? The kind that they,
No more.
What's a phone book?
If it's a laptop, tilt the laptop. If otherwise,
A pillow, something.
We want to see your punum.
Since we're not meeting
Yeah,
in
but I
person, maybe I
see
give them the
you,
shelf
Flo.
for the projector.
I didn't hear what he said.
I'll get a bar stool,
You're on.
Yeah, there you go.
as long as you guys provide the bar.
What do you have? The camera built into your monitor?
Yeah, I had it's the problem with my desk. It's an all-in-one, and
Okay.
I have a second level on the desk because it's a hutch, so I can't put it on the first level.
Oh, okay. I get it. I see what's going on. Okay.
Well, you just have to go out and buy a new desk, that's all.
That'll solve the problem.
Or can't you cut the
No.
legs off a
Wait,
little bit?
wait. I want you to tell that to my wife, not me.
Okay, guys, I'm going. See you.
okay, take care.
Okay.
Take care.
Claude, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much again for
Okay.
doing
It
this.
was a wonderful.
Thank
Claude,
you.
reminder, turn off your video. It's gonna take an hour or two for it to keep your laptop on.
Oh, okay.
Turn off the video now because you're recording.
Okay,
And
bye.
then I'm gonna close the meeting.
Thanks,
You want us to
Okay.
keep our laptop on?
July 14th, we have a meeting. Is that it for the,
Maybe a photo shoot.
Yeah.
right,
You,
okay.
June 28th, June 29th is our next competition.
Right, I
Right.
did send out a
25th, I think.
notice.
25th, June
25th.
Good
25th.
night, all.
Okay,
Bye,
Ed,
Walter.
Ed's still here?
Bye, Michelle.
Goodbye.